Hello, welcome to Video 9. This video is the ninth in a series that are basically telling a lot about what goes on behind the scenes on the other side. Call it heaven, call it other side, whatever you want. Now, if you have not seen the other videos, please see the other videos first because you'll be completely lost if you just jump in here. But at that, up to this point, we talked about the founding of our society, the initial leap into immortality. We talked about trial by fire. We talked about finding good ways to actually live for long, extended periods of time. And we talked about Earth, the starting of Earth. I mean, coming down here, observing at first, the escapees that made everything interesting, and then the starting of putting our children into the human bodies so that they could have an experience. So this is where we'll leave off. I'll just tiny review, then go straight into the next parts of religion and commerce and advancements in technology. So, if you remember, part of the reason to use the Earthlings here, because they were existing already, they happen to be extremely similar to the genetics of where we came from, due to the fact that how dimensions work and how atoms interact with each other. It just was a number of factors, including parallel evolution, just in this case happened to make it be extremely similar. So similar that our side, another side has even used genetic bits from Neanderthal, from Denisovans, from here and there in their own genome, just to because they're always looking to make it better, and those are all bits of genes that have been tried and tested rather than, say, artificial ones. So this whole thing about needing to perfect the genome so that we're less violent, so that we are less prone to idiocy as a species, is just, it's necessary. It became necessary with the trial by fire. The studies went so deep, and it's to show that without better genetics, there was just no way to do it. No matter how you did the education, no matter how you did anything, it eventually failed. This genetics are not really capable of leading life for literally, millions or billions, who knows how long that we want to live. It's just not capable of it. It's too prone to violence and madness along the extreme long terms, no matter how you train it. So, yeah, that's why they went into the genetics is of the utmost importance. And so, by getting better genetics, the goal, like I said last video, is not just to force you to just be a robot. Nobody wants to be a robot, them least of all. But the goal is control. They want to have passions. They want to have emotions. They want to have all the things that they make them human, but even more so, and in better depth, and in better, more vivid. And in order to do that, we have to control our emotions more, not the other way around. We can't just be a slave to our hormones and anger and all of that when we are the ones that should be the masters of our emotions. In addition to that, we need our emotions to work better in the environment around us so that they don't work against us. They work for us. For example, getting stuck in traffic, of course that's going to make anybody go up the wall. But why? It's partly the situation, but it's partly our genetics and how our bodies were designed over the many, many years to respond to stresses. And so, yeah, it needed an overhaul long term. And like I've said numerous times, this is not anything similar to the whole blonde-haired, blue-eyed master race that was in World War II supposed to, take over. I mean, that's ridiculous. It's just one race is too broad of a brush. You need genetics on the very, very, very fine scale, like really small. And the thing is, nobody on the earth, not any race, has perfect genetics. Nobody. Everybody is flawed, and quite honestly, most people are a lot more mad than they believe themselves to be. And so, what you're looking at is a genetic overhaul of the human genome. Or, I mean, you really might as well call that human too, because it's from the other realm. It's so similar that, might as well be not the same, like you said, but very, very, very similar. Yeah, it's a complete genetic overhaul of the human genome. Absolutely needed, because for long, indefinite lifespans, our bodies have to respond better to these long time frames and better behavior, honestly. And that doesn't wipe out the need for education. It certainly doesn't. We are beings that have emotions. We have feelings. We have passions. And as such, we need to learn how to control them. In order to control, it's the two-part thing. Our bodies need to be able to be controllable, and our minds need to learn how to control. And so with this dual-pronged approach, better education and better genetics, those two hand in hand, we learn how to fine-tune our control of the emotions, and we get a body that is capable of being controlled. And so you look at all of the arts, you look at all of the sciences, you look at all of the beautiful, wonderful, appreciative things. You look at, how beautiful a flower looks, and the type of sensitivity that it requires to deeply understand yourself and those around you, and really just go to the next step with everything that is beautiful in this world. That requires more advanced genetics. The ones that without the advanced genetics from years past were the ones that were more warlike, that stomped the flowers into the dust rather than, made sure that they would go. And it's not black and white. Yeah, I'm sure people really like doing things. And there's no such thing as a completely bad genetics either. There's nobody that has the complete ultimate bad and the complete ultimate good. It's just various little parts of the genome are tested to be bad long term for that environment. Maybe they're good for this environment, but they're not for long term. And then various other things are tested to be good. So getting a better genome overall, keeping the variation that makes us individuals. We don't want to be everybody the same exact genome for everybody. We need variation within certain range so that we all are similar, but not too similar so that we feel like we're just all clones of each other, and not too dissimilar to where we feel like we're completely different species that don't even relate to each other. It has to be within just the right range. And so, I mean, if you just don't get why the genetics of the humanity needs to be overhauled over the next X amount of years, then, well, I mean, there's remedial courses up there. They'll go over it. And trust me, as mad as it sounds, it's absolute necessity. There's not even any choice. They've been through so much. There's just no choice. They have so much data that you'll be convinced. Everybody will go along. I mean, your genome up there is different than your genome down here. And as we get updates to the genome, everybody gets the updates. There's certain parts that are updated to be better, then you'll be able to have that update. To update genetics, they just use, I believe, bioengineered viruses that deliver the DNA to everybody. It's one way. They have other ways, but that's one of the ways they can do it. But at that, going back to the Earth. So, like I said, one of the things about the Earth they decided was to use the human genetics, use the body down here, because the genetics over on the other side were already perfected a lot. I mean, they're already more peaceful, more different. And even at that, you could see the escapees wanted to go back and have a lot of fun. Back with the humans who were very attractive to them. And they wanted to live like kings. So, yeah, there was the need of making sure the young kids learned that the genetic changes that we were making were in their best interest and in everyone's best interest, and they needed to learn to accept those. But they also needed to learn how to control their bodies and to learn how to appreciate the rules as well. And it just, you get the whole idea, testing yourselves and learning experiences so that you can come back and not rebel as much and really be appreciative of all the things that we've done. So, similar to Avatar, but not completely. Your body went into a pod. That's what they decided. The body goes into a pod, and then the electronic overlay then sort of shifts the consciousness out of the body and into a host human down here. And your body's still, up there kicking, but like I said, the example where you put, say, if you sat in a chair and put a virtual reality headset on and then attached cameras and microphones to, say, like a remote control car, it would seem like your consciousness is going along with it. So, I mean, you could ask a lot of questions about the process. Where are you? Where is the essence of you actually at, really? If your senses are in one place, your long-term body is another, but you're actually thinking and feeling with the body and mind that you're, I don't know, cohabitating with down here. I mean, there's just some things you're going to have to learn later, but the important part about this is by doing that, by getting the electronic overlay to get your consciousness shifted into a body down here for while this body down here is alive, you get to think and feel and really in all intents and purposes, I mean, to be human completely be human for this time frame. And the electronic overlays automatically then shift your consciousness back towards the other side as soon as this body dies. There's no monitoring involved. And this time, there's no way to disable or get around the tracking. They know exactly where you are at all times, and there's recorded, everything. I mean, basically, the data is coming one way or another, whether you like it or not. There's not going to be such thing as another escapee. Well, trust me, there's not. They learned their lesson. And, yeah. So, this also, on the human side, so, I mean, looking in terms of, like, the humans, they were down here already. They didn't have eternal life. They were just a bunch of, I mean, literally, Stone Age people that didn't know anything when we got here. There were some, primitive religions and such. There was, kings and this and that, but they really didn't have the trade routes. They really didn't have the technology. They were just, pretty primitive. And like I said earlier, they were bound to eventually get technology. I mean, that tends to happen with a race that's this smart. And so this way, they got something that they couldn't have. They, in a sense, do get eternal life out of this as well, because when the body's born is the time that the overlay comes in, and then you shift your consciousness into it. But, in a sense, you're thinking and feeling with the human brain, and you're thinking with the genetics of the human, and so it is, in a sense, partly the human part of you will go along there for the ride back, home. So, in a sense, then yes, the humans get as much of a eternal life out of it as they possibly could. Now, you could debate the ethics of it all you want, and there's going to be time for it later. But really, honestly, you don't know you don't completely understand the system. And there's bound to be some disagreements among this, but long term, for the stability of both humanity and for our species and the other side, this was just the best thing. Because if it weren't for us, humans would still be basically in caves right now. And many of you would just completely disagree with me. And you know, maybe they wouldn't be in caves. Maybe they would have learned something a lot more. But they had been going for thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of years just on their own, pretty much doing the same thing, having some semblance of, you know, brilliance here and there, but all in all, getting it wiped out fairly quickly. The advancements that we've made in our society just flat out wouldn't have happened without help from the other side. They just wouldn't. And so you're going into this world with all sorts of different races, all sorts of different um, religions, all sorts of different cultures, all this place and that. And like I mentioned, our races back then had been pretty much wiped out by the narrowing and at the first hand of when the initial leap had happened. Because when there are so few people right there at the very, very beginning, a race gets wiped out. And so I know so many of you are tied to your race, but you have to remember, you're not even human. You're from there. And it's very, very similar. It's practically the same thing. But you're not white, you're not Caucasian, you're not black, you're not Hispanic, you're not Asian. You're not even Middle Eastern. I mean, you're not any of those races. You're none of the above. You are a more perfected being that has had the genetics go past any of that in terms of its, you know, evolution, if you want to call it guided evolution, you know, lab-based evolution. So no, you're not any of those races, and you're having the experience down here. And like I said, yeah, we did take genetics from this place and that, and there's more genetic variation now than there were many, many years back when that first started. I mean, like I said, we infused some of this and some of that into genetics, and so you get some that are up there that are more tending to be like, you know, Denisovan, talking more and really communicating, things like that. You get some more that are closer to, and I don't mean like the original ones. I mean like the type parts of it that we got out of them. Like the Neanderthals. Neanderthals weren't stupid. They certainly weren't. They had a lot of brilliance there. They were colder climates, slower thinkers in terms of how long it took to make decisions. But they took more time in took more emphasis on getting every aspect of what they were doing, because they had to be careful. They didn't want to make a wrong move. And so the elements of the Neanderthals that we got out of them, which much of, or in lots of the humans down here as well, help make for a slower, more contemplative thought process that leads to better decision making. And granted, this is taken in some bit out of context from the original genome, because we didn't take the whole thing. But the parts that we got were very useful. They were absolutely very useful, and they make us better as a species. They really do. So, yeah, you have, going back, yeah, you have all of this races that we're putting our bodies into. And it, you know, honestly, like I said, you have a race, you enjoy your race, you've gotten a lot of good experiences of it, and you probably don't want to be any other race. And that's great, because that's something you could take into the eternities. It doesn't matter what you look like. You can look like anything when you're there, eventually, not when you're a student, but when you get further on, you can look like anything you want. That's not, I mean, you can infuse whatever genes you want. You can keep the genes you have and just change your looks. You can change every day if you want to. I mean, looks are not important. Skin color, not important. I mean, eye color, hair color. I mean, you could have blue hair if you want. I mean, the whole thing about race down here is just, I mean, honestly, so primitive, because you really don't understand genetics. What you're talking about with race is really more culture. And you're just mixing stuff that shouldn't be mixed genetically. It's just, yeah, you're like little kids talking about it. And, you know, a lot of you realize that. and most of you are not part of that discussion. But anyway, yeah. So we didn't start out everywhere, like I said. Um, Only where the humans were infused with the students here at birth, so that it was, you know, a being that was basically us, but in a body that was human. We took over the human body, but that's okay. It's fine. Um, Only those ones are the ones that had eternal life at first. We did offer it to others, like I said. They just flat out no, they would rather just go and die rather than, I mean, literally, and go off to their gods, which, I mean, we told them I'm not going to do anything for them. But that's what they'd rather do, and that's what they did. So as the program rolled out, it was not really fair for some to be getting eternal life and others no, because, I mean, really, you're going to mix, you're going to mingle down here, you're going to marry who you want, and you certainly don't want to have the dilemma of, oh, well, they got married to somebody who's just basically a bot, doesn't have any souls, not coming back. What are we going to tell them when they get back? Well, that's why. I mean, we had to roll it out to everybody. I mean, it's basically everybody or nobody. So, yeah, everybody has a soul now. It's been many, 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 many long years since those days. Learned a lot of stuff. So, getting back to starting off with helping out society. Our goals with helping out society on that side were, we wanted to help the humans, and I keep saying we as if I'm a part of them, because I am a part of them. You're a part of them. The humans are the ones that are not us. We're having a human experience. We're sort of using the body, yeah, but when we go back, we're going to go back as us. With the human part of it, yes, but our history goes so much deeper, yours and mine and everybody. And so I'm sorry, I just identify with that identity, not the humanity. I'm sorry, I just don't. That's who I am, and knowing more about my history and about my future, I just don't identify as much with the life down here. I just don't. Sorry. Learned too much about that. So, going back to it, how are you going to help the humans? We have to help them with technology, obviously, because we need to make the situation more applicable to the learning experiences. And yeah, there's lots of things you could learn if you send your kid to just basically live in a cave, but there's more stuff that you can learn as you add more technology and add more stuff, as well as you can make their experience down here a little bit more palatable, hopefully. But, some people really loved the cave experience. They really did. I mean, there's people sent to, say, jungles of like Amazon or whatnot. I mean, not everybody is the type that wanted to do that, but the people who wanted to do that thought I mean, I know some on the other side that were like, that had their life in Amazon like 2,000 years ago, that very primitive, but they liked it because they thought it was very freeing. It was no time constraints, no appointments. I mean, they really liked it. Not everyone, obviously, but some people like to be in more civilized stuff. Some people don't in this life. It's to each his own. Everybody has different experiences. And so, yeah, different types of kids to put different types of places based upon their needs and based upon the learning experiences they're likely to have in that different society. And so, going back to the genetics of it and to the behavior of the humans, they're primitive, they're violent, they don't know much, they're very prone to kill, rape, and commit all sorts of atrocities one to another. And so, obviously we need to not just give technology, because they'll just use it to blow each other up all the much quicker. Sorry, you have to treat them like little babies, because that's what they really are. They're violent babies that know too much and cause way too much problems. And so you give them things like trade routes. Trade routes and trading, what that does is that takes people away from the villages and away from the cities to, of course, bring goods and services over somewhere else. And Granted, that is also a source of fighting, but over the long run, it also is a source of giving people reasons, especially when you try to, influence their mind to have more years of peace than you would have otherwise, because they're busy working and doing stuff that's productive and helping bring goods to the populations, and it helps people in both places that are trading, because each of the those locations get services and goods, and get goods that they wouldn't have had otherwise. And so we did help out with getting some trade routes started and influencing people to start doing things like that. And there's various ways of influencing it. Sometimes that we went down and the leaders on our side went to meet with leaders of the humans. And the leaders of the humans still have records of that. Like you look in Asia, there's some. If you go into the top of the leaderships, the people in the very, very, very high parts of leadership, they know what the agreements were way back when. They know what they were told to do, and they know the bargain they made. And some feel like they made it and they kept it, and that they're been responsible for that, and some are just plain out and out rebelling. But yeah, there's that method where you just talk straight to the leadership. The other method is just basically giving hints. There's if you remember the electronic overlay that basically binds the body that you have to this one down here, they got good at feeding different things along the stream so that you could put some ideas in people's heads just naturally at just the right time to help them learn and grow. Now, still, it only takes a little nudge in the right direction lots of times. From once they do that, then the person that had the original idea is then going to go start thinking on their own and come up with a lot of stuff on their own. It takes, if you're really good at it, not way too much guidance here and there just to get people rolling in the right direction. Sometimes it takes more. And then you have the person coming up with the original idea. Somebody else along the way will see it, and they'll do completely on their own without any influence from or help, can go off and make ideas of their own. I mean, certainly I don't want to say that we students can't come up with ideas without help. That's not true. But what is true is without help, we would not have had the environment in which to do it. If you look at the technological and moral advancements over the past many, many years, they happen because of the environment and the availability of things led to the person being just in the right place at the right time and getting that idea that made the next invention or the next big thing. And so it's subtly influencing the environment so that you can create the circumstances in which ideas are likely to happen. And whether we directly, intentionally put those ideas there, or if they naturally come out of that environment, it's creating the environment itself that leads to those types of things that is possible. People are very independent. They're going to do what they're going to do. But if you put around them in the environment the proper tools that they need to put stuff together to get to the next level, some of them will do that. And so the job on the other side is to make that environment, put the tools down here in the proper places so that people naturally do that, and in some cases even lend a hand to give a push, either by whispering something into their mind without them knowing too much that it's us, or even directly coming down and telling the leadership, hey, what's up. And so with that, that's some of the reasons for trade routes. That's some of the reasons for inventions. There's even a whole plan about what types of inventions will come when, so that we can keep humanity on a stable course to move forward, so that, say, the weapons don't overwhelm the ability to, calm the people down so that they don't kill too many people. And granted, if you see how many wars there are, you can see that yeah, there was a lot of deaths, a lot. But you have to remember there's going to be deaths either way. The goal was to minimize it and make it better than it would have been otherwise, while still moving society forward so that you're able to have the learning and growth that you need. I mean, in order to bring learning and growth, you have to have technology. In order to technology so that people can not just all be farmers or hunter-gatherers, so that they can actually have some free time. Do you think people are going to have a free time if they only are working in the factories? Or do you think they're going to have free time if they're, working on just a farming? Yeah, of course they'll have free time, but they're not going to have as many resources to be able to learn with. So it's a delicate balance. So by bringing technology, yeah, you increase the ability to kill more and more. You also make it possible for people to study peace more. So I mean, there's lots of balances, and there's lots of thinking that goes on into managing the society from far. And there's the whole thing about how do you indirectly influence people when they're the ones that are going to be free to make the choices. You can tell them, you can say, hey, you can do this or else to the leadership. But it's an incredibly complicated thing. I mean, leaving the kids to be pretty much free to do what they want while still guiding them when they ask for it and when they need it, and still making sure that society lives within certain boundaries. It was a very hard thing. And such a hard thing that we'll get into problems with the genetics that it caused up on the other side too. But I'll just get into that now. So basically, one of the reasons why I'm making this video is because along this time when we sent the kids to the Earth, things were okay and they were working out decently well, but like I said, it was like whack-a-mole with trying to get all the societies in order working okay. We were really honest and forthcoming when we came down at first, and just told people, like the leadership flat out, hey, we're an advanced group. We're going to help you out. We'll give you, get you started and get you technology that's good, and we'll help you make sure that you can have a fair and equal society. And this is all going to be a part of one package. You're not just going to get stuff to beat each other over the heads with, because that's not the point. And of course, they just, like I said, they just flat out said no. First and foremost, we're going to rule over everyone and we're going to keep possession of the other humans as our property, basically. And you're going to just go take a hike. We'd rather have nothing than to just lose all of our property, basically. So either way you look at it, humans are going to be slaves to somebody. This way, they have the most amount of freedom as possible. And so the problems with having to lead the humanity came from the disconnect between the type of genetics we had now at that time and the primitive genetics that the humans had. There was a group of people that volunteered to have subtle infusions here and there of certain elements of the primitive genetics put back in so that they can more easily understand and relate to each other. Now, some of you have seen like the new Star Trek with Khan, how it's Benedict Cumberbatch, the one that, not the original one, but the one, I guess the original one is probably good too, but the one Benedict Cumberbatch, he was saying to Spock, basically, yeah, you're smart, but they don't need smart. They needed somebody that thinks violent in order to be able to really control and get good defenses for Starfleet. And while that's not exactly true, that does have truth to it. The brain processes for intelligence are not all the same. They don't work the same. a good peaceful kind of logic is going to be the best way. I mean, you get everything logically and fairly, and you could do that with intense intelligence, intense strategy, but not overwhelmingly so. You don't just have to inject yourself with tons and tons and tons of stuff, but that's really primitive. But they did need to honestly be able to think a little bit more like the humans. They needed to be able to plan and keep ahead of them. And those infusions with the more primitive genetics allowed them to have just enough to where they can really relate to them and understand them very, very well, so they could keep ahead of them. And the type of system that came to be is the madhouse that we have now. It was a complete contrast from what was originally thought. What was originally thought were going to be 2,000 years maybe, and we'll just say, hey, you know, we have some peaceful stuff and some good technology. Of course, they didn't have plans to just come down and give nuclear technology to people that were used to making, you know, bows and arrows and maybe, who knows, some primitive metals and whatnot. No, they weren't going to do that. They obviously weren't. They were going to give things that were realistically doable, like a sewage system that would work with the technology they had, and then give some next steps to slowly increase the technology. But that was a source of butting heads and a source of anger too, because the people down here said, well, hey, look all you can do, and you're going to give us this junk? So, being honest, didn't work. So when you look at humanity, many people that are educated now completely underestimate how different an educated mind is from somebody who's never been to one day of schooling. There's superstitions, there's things that they'll believe that are really gullible. There's a lot of stuff that, I mean, having been through the educational process, you would just stop and think and go, what in the world are they thinking? And it's not to insult the people that didn't have that opportunity. It's just that's the reality of it. When you don't go through the types of training that have become more standard in the modern world, you get more superstitions. And if you look back on the amount of different pagan religions and the amount of different, I mean, other religions and superstitions and this and that, it was just a part of everyday life. People were superstitious. People believed in things like that. And so how are you going to affect people? Well, it's not coming down there and just saying, hey, you know what, I have a good thing. Let's all be free and equal and happy. No, that didn't work. So what they did is they used the current beliefs of humanity. And they used it however they had to in order to get the people to be a little less violent and have a little bit more goodwill one to another. Even if that's scaring some and having others benefit from mystical experiences that really are just sort of manufactured from their own experiences in a way that gets them to be kinder and have better experiences. And so, yeah, I mean, literally everything is open game. People believe in fairies. Well, there's probably something we can do with influencing them in that way. People believe in, who knows, you know, golems, or people believe in witchcraft. People believe in this, that, and the other. Well, there's got to be some way that can be used, even if that's only slightly here and there. Now, granted, not everything about those things is going to be used. Most of some religions or some rituals are just completely random stuff that are good for nothing. But over the long course of time, subtle bits of influence here and there have good effects. So, yeah, we used stuff. We used a lot of stuff. We still do. Like I said, do you really think that there's there's aliens with bird heads and other aliens that are lizard people shapeshifters, that are other ones that are from the center of the earth, other ones that are from here and there. Do you see a pattern here? Look at the ancient mystery religions. Look at, say, let's take Masonic stuff. You have the, 33 steps of the degrees of leading up to the best, most learned Mason. And then you have above that the mystery stuff that no one hears about. You have so many things that you can't possibly learn it in any 100 lifetimes, really. Maybe. You could learn it 100 lifetimes, but you have tons and tons and tons and tons of stuff. And that's not even including the Kabbalah variations in, like, the Jewish variations. That's not including other Gnostic types of variations. There's not including this, that, and other that are believed by different groups. I mean, you take that type of thing when there's so darn much information that you have to get in order to really be good at your religion or your belief system. And then you look at the amount of aliens there are. There's boatloads of species. There's boatloads of groups from all sorts of planets. There are some people that have seen aliens from literally almost every planet in the solar system, and not to mention, things from way out there. It's not random stuff, and it's not just people's imagination. Well, it is a lot of people's imagination, but it's not. This type of a thing is useful. It's very, very useful, because you have to remember, the more that you're learning about random stuff, the less you're dropping bombs and killing people. The more that you could be delayed by having to do weird rituals, the less that you're going to do the killing. And granted, we don't want to help people kill people, but if they're in the process of trying to kill people anyway, we can at least slow them down by saying, hey, this thing needs to be done and that thing needs to be done first, or else it's not going to be of any use. And so this is the goal. I mean, this is the thing about the evil, about those bad types of witchcraft and Masonic rituals. So the rituals have a purpose. We did not come up with them on our side and over here. The humans had them from the beginning, before we even got here, the thousands and thousands of years ago. That's just flat out fact. They had rituals going way, way back. But we do on our side put extra rituals and put extra emphasis on those for the bad students, so that we slow them down. It's for the ones that we can't control and can't stop. We'll at least put something there so that at least to slow them down. And yeah, we'd much rather just say, hey, no, that's bad, want you to be good, but these ones aren't going to be good. And so you at least put a ritual there in the middle of their way, then they keep doing what they're doing, but at least they've slowed it down and done less stuff. I mean, it brings up a thing about, we're not really in control. I mean, the people on the earth are in control. The leadership is in control. They're doing all sorts of things what they want. And on the other side, we're just sort of doing all sorts of stuff to catch up. I mean, that's one viewpoint. I mean, certainly the leadership of the earth has taken this into where it's at now. We never planned on the other side there to have something this violent. If you look at truth or movement stuff right now, you can see that there's tons of violence. There's tons of things that I just don't even want to even mention. And all of the things that the truthers have found, there's tons that they haven't even found yet. There's an umbrella of protection over the humanity. And this, for the people, I mean, the truthers think that the mainstream people are just sheep. They're sheeple. They're just blind and they're mindless slaves that don't even know it. Well, it's a protection for them. They at least they think they have a decent life, and And in thinking that, then they, in a sense, sort of do, in a matter of speaking. And then the ones that above that umbrella think, oh, look, these stupid people were just doing all sorts of stuff that we want to do to them. And we're fooling them so much that they didn't even know it. Well, yeah, but that's the protection. And it is time for that to slowly go. The protection needs to end. The people need to start realizing what's going on so that the era of peace can come in. But going back to the religions that we're starting. I know it's taken me 45 minutes and I haven't even gotten to the religion starting. I talk too much, but it's a huge topic and I'm already cutting it down way too much. You'll spend years and years and years and years on these types of things. I mean, hundreds of years studying all this stuff that takes me only, hours to give in this video series. So, going back to it. You have a world down here on Earth where you have various pagan religions, you have the ancient mystery religions going, you have Judaism, you have, there's no Islam yet, there's no Christianity yet, there's tribes and all sorts of things going on. You have had some pretty unsuccessful attempt by us on the other side, to be honest, and then you have the change to where we're going to be working with the beliefs that the humans have already so that they get more involved in the teaching as well. The more, like I said before as well, you get more involved in the teaching, it means more to you, you're going to learn more from it, whether it's real or not. It becomes a part of who you are and it becomes something that you learn really well. So one of the first religions that we were really instrumental in adjusting and fine-tuning was the Jewish religion. That was one of the first, or the first big one. And in the beginnings of the writings, we did have some influence. Now keep in mind, as much as it pains some of you to hear this, and as much as you will never believe me in this life, probably, the older you go in the Bible, the more and more and more stuff in it is just not from us on the other side. It's just not. It's absolutely not. It's a tribal religion that we were slowly and surely putting more and more stuff into. And so the older you go in the Bible, it's not all of it was from us. Now, granted, we'll use whatever we can. If it starts having deep meaning for you, then absolutely, we'll wrap that into something good and make it a learning experience and make it great. But I do have some judgment there because you have to remember, the society back then was very, very, very male-centered. It's not the society we have on the other side. We certainly never, ever came up with the idea of having 100 wives. That's completely runs contrary to how marriage was working. Trust me, there was, in the trial by fire period, plenty of groups that had no problems with doing whatever you wanted with sensuality. But how it worked out is the marriage is not there just because of the physical stuff. Physical is part of it, but the mental is crucial. And you cannot have the mental connection, the trust, the bonding between two people, the emotional bonding between two people, if it's one person and 100 wives. It makes the wives feel like they're not as valuable as the males, and that makes the males have a variety of negative effects as well. We never came up with that. That basically has its origins in cattle and in other animals like that have one dominant male that thumps his chest or knocks horns with someone else and tries to win control and possession of all the women, and then throw out all the poor lonely other guys that were just unfortunate enough to not be the biggest brute out there. Well, that's where that came from, and it certainly wasn't from us. And there's a lot of other stuff that wasn't from us, and it's not right. Have judgment when you're looking at the Bible. There's a lot of good stuff that we did put in there, and it was a very good success in leading up to a certain point. Another one in the Jewish religion that didn't come from us was the extreme focus that those in the Jewish religion are the chosen people and no one outside of it is. I mean, obviously, we put people in Jewish bodies, we put people in Muslim bodies, we put people in Christian bodies, we put people in miscellaneous ones that aren't any of those. And when you get onto the other side, you pick up the pieces, get your learning experience. It helps out to have people from all sorts of different learning experiences as they're coming there, because then you have a lot of different viewpoints, which a lot of different ways of learning, which as they grow and get to be members of the long-term society, it really helps build our knowledge base and our experience base. It really does. You have to look at it from that standpoint. Now, we were using that sort of in a different way. And I put myself as a part of the we because I've adopted, I really, like I said, I associate more with that side of myself than the humanity. I just do. But yeah, we used that in a way that was meant to be more like we are chosen because we have the knowledge. People that have the knowledge are chosen to spread it and live it. And the type of responsibility that you get by having certain knowledge and certain things given to you, it is a responsibility. You need to learn and live up to what you're given. Some people are not given as much, and for them it's not expected as much. But if you're given the knowledge, if you're given the wisdom, and you're given the ability to use it, there's a responsibility that comes along with that, and that certainly is something that was meant. And also, family. If you look at the whole thing where only, you have the 12 tribes of Israel, and only those within that family are going to really, be part of Israel. I mean, obviously people from everywhere are going to be part of heaven, but the thing is, beliefs are, like I've said before, beliefs are not just something that you subscribe to. A religion is not just something that you go to on a Sunday and say, okay, here we go, I feel great. It is more like a family. It is a part of who you are. You have a family on the other side. It is something that, whether you're here on this side of the world or there on that side of the world, you have to remember that you're related. Maybe not by your genetics too much down here in this biology, but you're related by your eternal biology and your eternal perspective, and you're also related deeply through beliefs in a way that just subscribing to an idea doesn't fully cover. That idea of belonging was something that is something that can bring good ideas. You have to be supportive of each other to the point where you can really give and sacrifice your time and your efforts for other people, and just realize that, here's another important one, that your beliefs and your brotherhood in righteousness is more important than your race. Absolutely. Just because you're a different country, different race, your beliefs and your brotherhood in the spirit and in truth are more important than race. It transcends that. It brings you closer. But you can see then why it was important for Christianity to start. There was only so far that Judaism was taking us. We needed a religion that was going to help in the next phase of building humanity. And there were some more advancements that were planned. And I understand if you're Jewish and you don't like the whole Christian thing and you think they're evil, well, have some perspective for now, because I'm going over it as honestly as I can. And you just have to understand that there's a role that Jewish people play right now to this day. There's a role that Christians play, and there's a role that non-Christians play, and that others play. And that will become more clear eventually on the other side. But I'm just going to give a brief overview, and you can study more to your heart's content in other places. So the Christianity was needed to broaden the learning to the world. Not just to one group, and not to where we could say, hey, this is the chosen group and everyone else is not chosen as much. But to really give the idea of eternal life to everybody. Some idea to where they had something to strive for. The idea of forgiveness. The ideas of lots of things that came along with Christianity. And that will work hand in hand with our plans to bring forth technology and a middle class. And time for people to study and think on their own, rather than continually just working the land or just having time to sit. If you're a farmer and you have off time and you're just sitting, now you have resources. But then, way back then, if you don't know how to read, you don't know how to, you haven't been to school, well, your time is only going to be of so much use. Handing people learning is something that is very, very useful, and that's what we were planning with Christianity. It went hand in hand with the technology. And, by the way, it went hand in hand with another genetics update. So, around the time of Christianity got started, up there on the other side, they had a new round of improvements in the genetics, gentler genetics, ones that are not prone to as much violence. And granted, some of them were still not fully up to speed on that. You had a bigger division up there in terms of the genetics that they had. Some of them were in the roles where they needed to help out the bad guys and make sure that they didn't become too violent. And others were on the bleeding edge of science, getting the more gentle genetics going and trying to lead our evolution into the future. Because it's not just a matter of, like I said, taking stuff from Denisovans, taking stuff from the Homo sapiens, taking stuff from the Neanderthals, and then wrapping it up into a more cohesive package. There are also natural breeding techniques that are used. Granted, we don't just force people together, but certain ideal matchings happen. And if some couple just happens to be born with really new, interesting genetics, we're certainly not going to say, wow, look at you two, how lucky you are, you flipping people. No. You're going to say, okay, look at that. That's really interesting. Let's take that genetics and analyze it and see if that's something that we can sort of help in an update. And you take all of the new births over the very large population that we have, with a little bit of science and directed matchmaking. Granted, we're not going to force anyone together, but if they just happen to meet and just happen to like each other anyway, that could lead to some new genetics, then that's good too. And over the period of time that we've been going, that things between the taking things from the miscellaneous species of Earth and between the natural things that we were leading and studying, births are going to happen anyway. You need to study every genetics from every kid in order to see any new possible things that could happen to affect everybody else. So there was the new gentler genetics that were happening. They were codifying a set of changes to the overall genetics that would keep the individuality, but also boost it into being more gentle and wise and capable of the next step, hopefully. So this was a part of it. And along with down here, there were ways of, I'm not sure if they actually adjusted our genetics back then or not. It is possible that they affected it a little bit. I know for a fact that to this day, what they do when there's kids being born, sometimes it just is whatever. But there's other times when they take the egg and they take the sperm combination of the DNA, and then they actually just of what the possible outcomes are with the existing material, they just help the right one come out, rather than just something that's truly random. And so, while that doesn't happen all the time, that is something they do, not necessarily infusing with new genetics, but picking the right one out of the many combinations that could be. That's certainly something they do a lot. But going back to this, there were gentler genetics, and that helped the students down here on the earth as well. Because when you have gentler genetics in your body up there and you're a kid, you're going to have gentler genetics down here too. You're going to be put into a body that is at least somewhat compatible with it, even if that means that they sort of help the right genetic, very least, help the right combination come out for you. And so the Christianity was there so that, along with the genetics and the technology upgrades and other stuff that was ready, that we can start building our society down here into something that is more capable of taking the next step. The millennium, the era of peace, was always in mind when we did that. This was in mind back before we started with anything. We wanted to build it to a certain level. The whole millennium thing, or the era of peace, is actually pretty much what they just envisioned it would just be when they came down here. They thought they'd come down and have peace and just tell people, okay, let's live nicely. And they thought that, okay, well, that would happen. Yeah, that sounds stupid now, but they actually had hopes for something like that working. But so at this point, they were more realistic. All of those things, the genetics, the education, the and it's certainly not, okay, Christianity was just our big savior and there's nothing else ever. But no. There was efforts all throughout the board. If you know anything about it, it is efforts here, efforts there, every little place. Efforts in other religions, efforts in every religion. Every single place where a human can be influenced that really wants to be, then we'll be there to help them. But in this case with the Christianity, that's sort of roughly about how it got started. We were tired of the old way of doing things that led to the more primitive technology and lifestyle and the keeping everything for themselves, and wanted to spread this out to the world. And so that's when Christianity started. Now, this part of it is kept from almost everybody. There are people in the high parts of the elite that know this, but the Jesus story isn't 100% true. What did happen is there was a Jesus that came down. It, I believe, was more of a calling that a group of people took turns in, rather than just like one individual is there. It was adults that were already married and a part of the wise, already to a certain point, that was down here. It was not just a kid that was born and happened to be really smart and all that's in the Bible. I know this is a very, very revered story, and this is something that we'll go along with, and it's fine. Celebrate the birth and all that, and that's good. And as much as this would be heresy for a lot of you, this is actually what happened. So I'm sorry if you don't like it. You're just going to have to deal with it, because either you believe me now or you believe it when you see it then they're on the other side. But the Jesus that came down was, was an already grown adult. They that had been trained. And the whole thing about the birth and the tying it back into the whole Jewish tradition in the genealogy of it, that was pretty much up to, I believe it was the Jewish hierarchy back then that did that came up with the story behind that. I mean, what was given was an ultimatum. This was not like just a poor carpenter saying, hey, please listen to me. yeah, for the effect for the people down here, it looked and felt like a poor carpenter and just preaching and doing miracles in lots of ways. They didn't necessarily come down in front of all the people and just saying, hey, look, I'm a glowing, wonderful mystical being. They wanted to make it look like a real person and doing this and doing that and making it look really amazing. Um, but behind the scenes with the leadership there, they told them. They told them in no uncertain terms. They said, you are absolutely going to take this Christianity and you're going to make it go. And they gave them certain boundaries and certain specific things that they were to include. And from there, from the real things that Jesus really did down here, and from the guidelines that our leadership of the earth was given, this is how you get what we have now. The birth story was made up by people. Granted, people that were very, very good at doing it. People from here, not people necessarily from the other side. There's a lot of Jewish influence on it, so that there could be some tie-in to Judaism, and so that would at least forever be related. And so that everyone that was a Christian would at least, have that to thank for. But in the death story, the crucifixion, I'm not sure how that got about. I do believe that was all 100% made up by humans. One thing I know for sure, I'm told flat out that Jesus didn't die. That that just didn't happen. Jesus didn't get crucified and die. Down here, they didn't want to go through that. The adults didn't. But yeah, there was a bit of theatricality put in there by the people writing the book. A lot of what Jesus said was true, and was what's there and what he really did say. But honestly, there's a lot of stuff that the real Jesus said that is not in the Bible. It was intentionally not put in there, despite what we told them to do. It just wasn't put in there. And there's some stuff that they have Jesus saying down in the Bible that we have that he never said. The Bible itself is a very good work because at least it has quite a lot of stuff that's going to lead you to doing the good things, the right things, the ones that we want. But I'm just telling you that it's not 100%. If you knew humanity like I knew humanity, you would really realize that's true. And it might take a lot of you, a lot of thinking and a lot of pondering and just some time to come to grip with this. But it's the honest truth. Anything that has this much power over that many people is not going to be left alone. Flat out, it's not going to be left alone. Look at all the manipulation that's going on now. And just tell me for a second that you don't believe that something with that much power is just going to be said, oh, well, we're just going to not touch it because it's sacred. No, nothing is sacred when it comes to power and control. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And so, yeah, flat out, when Christianity started, 100%, we told them from the other side, we told them that they are going to comply with this or else. Period. No discussion. It's going to happen. You're going to do it, or else you're going to have huge consequences. And we weren't joking because we've had it. We knew that without this, that really, it just would be a nightmare. Without this and the genetic stuff and the other stuff that was all accumulating in this plan that we had, it just was going to be a huge mess, a very huge mess. And so this is one of the reasons why, if you see some of the videos about the Catholic Church and others, why you can somehow get the sense that they're more fighting against God rather than looking towards God, despite the fact that they're religious leaders. Because they know in the Catholic Church, they know in the highest parts where the origins were. Why do you think that they put money into observatory? I mean, because I believe it was the aliens. The thing is, when I get it from the other side, they just said, oh, we did this and we did that. They don't necessarily say which group did it, because they have a whole theater department that that comes down as this group or comes down as that group. Sometimes they come down as alien greys, and sometimes they come down as, center of the earth people, and other times who knows what. But however they did it, they forced Christianity on us as a people, and our leaders certainly didn't like it then, and the ones in the know certainly don't like it now. And so that's why you get some of this split. Like you can see part of the church there really, really is so sincere and wants to believe it. And then you get this sense of lots of these elements of pagan stuff, the pagan rituals that were put into the church, elements of even satanic stuff, elements of these ancient mystery religions that were put through there. You get so much, misbehavior going through the Catholic Church as it goes through the Middle Ages, because they weren't wanting to be these God-fearing people. They didn't. A lot of them came to really believe it, because over the years, even the top gets to believe things. But all in all, you get an attitude against God because you believe that it's not really God, but a group that's forcing it on you, that's basically just pretending, or however it is. There's as many different people as there are. There's many different ways of going through this. And as much as the elite like to claim an unbroken line with records that go way, way back, they don't have it. They have a lot of good records, a lot more than you'd ever imagine, but it's not as organized as they believe, and not as unbroken as they believe. But yeah, there's that attitude, and that attitude comes from the fact that we forced them what to do. We forced them to make a religion that they didn't want to make. They liked their pagan stuff. They liked to have their multiple gods. They liked to do all the ancient mystery stuff that came down ultimately from pagan rituals and from the escapees that filled their heads with all sorts of things that they liked. That's what they wanted to do. And we said flat out no. And so at this point is one of the points where you really start getting an animosity build up behind the scenes. And it can grow, and it grows. And you see things like Knights Templar, and you see things, the ancient mystery religions in many, many different formats, from what happened to the Masonic stuff. And granted, there's a lot of good stuff in the Masonic, but it's intentionally there because of well, I'll go over that later. But yeah, that's why you see a split. They have the ancient mystery religions coming from the, like I said, from the pagan stuff and from the stuff that the escapees gave, as well as some from what we gave back when, times before we were more wise as to not tell 100% of the truth. People weren't ready for it. And then you have the Christianity, which was our attempt at a really, really pure thing that can help people believe. And one of the things with Christianity that was done intentionally is to let the leadership use it as a tool to keep the underlings in line. I mean, keep the mass populace in line. Have teachings like being meek, turn the other cheek, and do things like that. That was an attractive thing that they liked. And, that was forced on them, but they did like that, and they really wanted to emphasize the fact, certain things to help people learn to be meek, be patient, be long-suffering, and to just basically put up with all the stuff that they wanted to inflict upon them. But really, the last laugh was on us. We wanted that in the people because people that are patient, people that are meek, people that are long-suffering and have those types of qualities might be better in terms of what the leaders like to work with, but they are people that we can train better and people that will get wisdom sooner. If you're meek and long-suffering and look for truth and look for things like that, you're going to be easier to teach. And you're going to make it easier to have middle class come in and technology come in. And you're going to be easier to teach that everybody has rights. there is a connection there. And so, yeah, Christianity was started with that intention. It had that animosity from the beginning because of how it was forced on people. That is a really important thing, that we forced it on them, because you have to see that there is animosity at the top, even if it's well hidden. That's where the animosity comes from. And so, skipping over a lot about how it got started, there's a lot of details that are in there that I just don't have time for. Going on to the next thing, I'll just make a brief mention of it. I don't want to upset too many people, but I mentioned in another video that I'd tell you about a religion that's not going to be here anymore for much longer. Many of you have already guessed it. It's right, the Muslim religion. It was designed, and you can read a little bit about this online. I don't know that anything that's completely accurate is there, but the Muslim religion was designed intentionally by humans to control and manipulate people. It was intentionally designed to give, the Arab culture specifically what they wanted to hear, so that they can, willingly join a religion that is going to control them and manipulate them. The amount of control and manipulation that was built into that is something that we as a group over on the other side have come to regret a lot. Flat out, no way, shape, or form did we help we on the other side. And yeah, I'm not on the other side yet, but I put myself with them because, like I've said, I identify with it more. Flat out, it was not something that they helped create. It was something that they mistakenly tolerated enough to not stop it. And now it's too late. You have to understand, there's good people in every single religion. There's honest people that really try. And to the extent that people in the Muslim religion try, they will always be there. Your parents on the other side will always be there trying to inspire your heart and make you as nice of a person as possible. And also, make no mistake, there are good elements in every religion. There's even elements that we had been able to sneak into Satan worshiping. Granted, it's a very small amount in Satan worshiping. There's a very, very small amount, but there at least were some elements we were able to sneak in. They will sneak in things anywhere that they possibly can, including devil worship, because something is better than nothing. And if, it's just better to try to push any good thought or at least beneficial thought, something that's at least going to lead to something later, into a teaching, than rather than just not have it. But keeping in mind, it was humans that designed that religion. It was humans that designed it for a specific purpose. And that purpose was to control and manipulate. The amount of safeguards and the amount of teaching there that's designed so that it is a mind control technique, basically. Yeah, designed before a lot of the psychology of it, but it's really effective. Is such that how it works is, well, I'm not going to go into all of how it works, but there's enough safeguards in place that when your parents over on the other side try to influence your minds for good, there's so much peer pressure, as well as, I forget the words, it's like jinn or something like that. They think that it's going to be a devil speaking to them if it goes against anything that's said. There's a lot of ways that are checks and balances so that they don't think anything else but than what they're told. And granted, it's a huge population, and people are naturally going to want to think what they want to think. And you can't ever say that people are just going to be completely controlled. If you have a mind and really want to think what you want to think, you will be able to. But the religion itself attempts and is very successful at enforcing uniformity of thought through quite a number of different means. And the damage that it has on the other side is tremendous. When you have the horrible way in which women are treated in that religion and in their life throughout everything, that are literally in many places not even given the same rights as a dog. then you're going to have a lot of damage. It takes hundreds of years on the other side just to pick up the pieces and get them back into a position where, even a basic, well-informed person here on the other on this side is going to go just enter there right away. It basically just erases hundreds of years of worth of your existence. And it puts you through some traumas that is just inexcusable. It is something that it was absolutely a mistake. It was we didn't start it, but it was a mistake not to stop it. But it's too late now, but it will absolutely be stopped in time. Now, when the reign of peace comes, or there is a plan for the Muslim world. They're going to need some remedial work. They're not ready for the same reign of peace as everybody else as a general rule. Maybe some are, but as a general rule, they're not. And it's not really their fault. They were thrown into it. And there is a plan for them to help them out. Now, granted, I know many of you, if you're Muslim, you're just yelling at your screen saying, hey, well, look at the Christians. Look at what all the evil Christians did. Well, that's true. The Christians did a lot of evil stuff. Everybody did a lot of evil stuff. And Christians are often in places where they're going to be brainwashed. That's the nature of religion, is to be used as a tool to brainwash you. That's not just Muslim religion. It's lots of stuff. But the Muslim one in particular is especially damaging, as has been judged by the effects that it brings on the development on the other side. That's not something you're going to be able to see. You're not objective enough. But flat out, I can tell you that with the stuff that we have to do to reteach them and to get them through the traumas and to teach them basically that you're worth something, yeah, it's a religion that's flat out, it's not going to continue. As soon as we can get that wiped out, it's going to happen. Now, keeping in mind that could take 1,000 years, and it's open-ended. There's no way to know exactly when, but we're going to. It is absolutely on the table to in the place of peace. I mean, the time of peace to do that. And flat out, 100%, there are some leaders of Arab countries that know for a fact that this religion was manufactured. And they still support that because it's power that people need. It's up at that level. It's not something that they're looking for truth. Flat out, 100%. I am telling you, this was told to me in no uncertain terms. There's leaders of at least one Arab country that know for a fact that is true, what I've just said, that it was a manufactured religion. As well as there's others that know it as well. You can look at certain websites and see some of the, theories about exactly how that came to be. But, and I don't want to upset people, and I certainly don't want to divide. And I want to take this time to just quickly go back, refocus it, and just remind people that we are one society. We are one group. We have family members from all over the place. Some of your family members from up there are going to be in one race, and some are going to be in another, and some with this religion, some that. But ultimately, we're one group, and we need to become one group. And as we get to the other side, as we learn, as we grow, we are going to become one people, one values, and support and love each other. The love is the key. It helps us be able to not just appreciate what we should be doing, but want to treat each other right. And so it's well past time for this video to come to an end. And just remind you that there is no one religion that's 100% true. There is no big religion that's not been heavily influenced by the elites and the powerful of this world to try to manipulate you into being a sheep. a sheep that they control, not a sheep that's the healthy sheep that God controls, or the other side, whatever you want to call them. You have to be careful in any religion. If you follow the prophet or follow the pope or follow whatever leader you have, there's going to be a lot of good stuff, but there's going to be some things that are meant to make you not think. You have to think, you have to feel, you have to understand, and you have to work towards a thing where you see the dangers and you see that the evils that the leadership of this world is doing. There's going to come a time soon, unless the other side completely fails us, where the bad leaders are going to go. Part of the reasons why I'm making these videos is because there are certain divisions within the other side that are still trying to be healed. The changes to the genetics that were made way back when all of this stuff started in this video are trying to be undone now, and it's not a smooth process. And so these videos are being made because the most important paramount thing that we need to have is no division up there. We can't split as a group. And there are some that are about ready to. And I've been given assurances that everything is okay. Those that have been in the roles have had some problems coming back and removing those genetics. There was a bit too much put in, that they thought that, yeah, there's mistakes, that they're coming back to a more good, more pure way of doing things. They're coming back to ways that won't lead to our destruction. There are still dangers, though, and I need to see and I need to hear a resolution to at least a certain point, or else I'm not going to say that we're out of danger. So what that means for you, you all need to learn to be good. You all need to be peaceful. You all need to learn to be wise and use some of the things that you've heard here to help you understand that if you see a time that aliens come down and help you out, if you see a time when this thing happens or that thing happens, think, ponder, pray, talk to your parents on the other side, and try to get guidance. And if you're one of the black hats, there's nothing you're going to be able to do. You better just give in and be a white hat. You're not going to do that, but I'll go over the plans with what is going to happen next, as well as some other stuff. We need to cover the religions as it was going from the start of Christianity to modern day, as well as the plans for the future. That's going to be coming in the next videos. I don't know how many there are going to be, 1 or 2, or who knows how many, but yeah, that's what's coming next. There's still some really interesting stuff that's coming. And I'm still going to give a wrap-up of some of the dangers what we face as a group that need your responsibility, that need your voice, need you to be learning quickly to be a good, sound, governing member of our society up there eventually. So please stay tuned for the next ones. We're going to go over the plans and what is going to happen with the black hats. What is going to happen with the white hats at that day of peace. What are the plans for that? That's something that is going to be really important. And I will talk to you later. See you in the next video.